Welcome to the Bookshop at the End of the Internet. This podcast is dedicated to helping book lovers discover new authors. Like all the best bookshops, this podcast is filled with all kinds of books and all kinds of authors. So tune in, browse around, find a new author, and discover a new favorite book at the Bookshop at the End of the Internet. I'm Stacey Horan, author, book lover, and host of the Bookshop at the End of the Internet. This is episode number 271. For more information about this or any of our episodes, go to my website, staceyhoran.com. If you enjoy the podcast, leave us a review, like us on social media, and share us with your friends, family, and fellow readers. In today's episode of The Bookshop at the End of the Internet, I'm joined by author Annie Dike to talk about her new novel, Clovis, a story loosely inspired by her own life. Set in Clovis, New Mexico, the novel follows a young girl coming of age while navigating hard truths about love and loss, family trauma, addiction, betrayal, and the complicated path toward forgiveness and joy. Annie takes readers on an emotional roller coaster through childhood memories and adult reckonings, reminding us that family is rarely simple, often messy, sometimes painful, and occasionally beautiful. Although Clovis was her biggest writing challenge to date, Annie found the process unexpectedly therapeutic and infused the story with her signature sense of humor, bringing light to even its darkest moments. In this episode, I'll chat with Annie about her writing journey, the feedback she's received from readers, and why she chose to make the leap into literary fiction with this novel, as well as a few other things coming up. Annie Dike, I want to thank you very much for joining me today on the podcast.
Hello, glad to be here.
I thought what we could do today is start by talking about your debut literary fiction. This is a novel that you've written. You've written some other books, and we might talk about those a little bit, but this is your first foray into literary fiction. So if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about Clovis and what inspired you to write it.
It would be my honor, Stacey. Thank you. And I'm thrilled to be here. Love talking about my book. Like I warned you, I can talk about it for days. Thank goodness this podcast is only 30 minutes, so you can rein me in. Yes, first literary fiction. So I've written several books of different genres and different topics. This time I wanted to get, as deep into the writing and the characters and the scenes, settings, really challenge myself as a writer was the reason that I dove into this one. To describe the book a little bit, it's somewhat autobiographical and memoir, but it's not entirely. It's based loosely on my life. So Callie is not secretly, the main character is pretty much me. As she grows up, it's a coming of age, and you're going to follow Callie through some pretty intense emotional journeys. She's got a fractured family that she's navigating, losses, loves, challenges, addiction, crimes. There's things that a lot of our pasts are dark and ugly. And Callie tries to run away from all this only to find that it's what she needs to run back to. It's her backbone. She discovers it's her roots. So that's sort of the book in a nutshell. And I'm happy to talk about sort of how I started writing it and why I got into it later. But that's sort of the gist of Clovis.
So I'm curious what the spark was. At what point did you say, okay, there is a book here. This is what I'm going to write the book around. And when did it appear for you?
Great question. That's a unique question. I love that, the spark. So I started writing the book with a general idea of sort of my story woven into fiction towards the end. And I started writing. And I started with my childhood stories, which I can touch on those, that I was wanting to capture the uniqueness of my childhood and that it wasn't beautiful, but it was interesting and diverse. And there were so many characters involved and so many lessons, good, bad, and ugly. I wanted to capture that because I feel like a lot of childhoods nowadays miss the spectrum of experience, all the emotions. So I started there, and I will tell you, I had a thought. I'm kind of answering this for the first time because a spark is a very unique question. I knew I wanted to, without revealing, take one of the main characters and, like they say, kill your darlings. So one of them, I wanted to lose a loved one and feel what that felt like, and try to put my own heart in that place because the loved one that I lose in the book is someone very close to me, and so. I knew when I was going to try to do that a whole book was coming out of me. So at building up to that, because I have to build those characters so that you know the characters, so then you feel the loss. That's probably the spark. When I knew I was going to kill one darling, I knew I had a whole book.
Mm. Let's talk about Callie, because most authors will say there's at least a little bit of themselves in the book. In your case, there's probably quite a bit more of yourself than most writers put
Oh yeah,
into their
there's a lot of
characters.
it. Not a little bit.
At what point did Callie really start in your mind diverging from yourself? At what point was she her own being?
Sure. I would say it's kind of the high school college area is kind of a nice tipping point. Everything before that is pretty much truth. There's some stories have a flourish here or a destination changed or somebody's name changed, but it's very much true to my tale. But about high school, college, I knew towards the end of the book, what I did at the end is it turns to fiction. So a lot of what happens at the end of the book never happened to me in my real life. But it comes from actually that I have a sailing background, and so I sail a lot, and we cruise. We call that cruisers who actually like live on their boat and destination port to port to port, and you get to meet these people, and they're amazing, wonderful, eclectic, diverse people out there living on their boats. They have incredible stories, and the last half of the book is woven together stories from women that I've met over the years and the amazing things that they've endured, and they still have joy and love and they love the world, they love people, even though they've had all these hardships. And I wanted to share that because that inspires me to just keep my head up, and be happy and keep craving stories, even if
Right.
they're dark, because you can learn a lot.
True. I want to touch on that a little
Yeah.
bit. So can we jump a little bit to, I'm going to say broadly, themes. This book deals a lot with family and not necessarily portraying it in the best light, family members and family ties and family trauma. And if you ask anybody, most people will probably say family is messy, right?
That's a great word.
It's good and it's not, and before above all, it's just messy.
Hmm.
I'm curious, how much of these ideas were things that you knew before you started writing that you wanted to include versus you sort of discovered, okay, well, okay, this is what I'm writing about, or looking back, oh, hey, I didn't realize that was what I was dealing with. But I'm curious about, for example, like family trauma,
Hmm.
and the way it shapes us, the way we carry it, the way we deal with it or don't deal with it.
Right.
Again, I don't want you to give too many spoilers, but
Sure.
at what point did you know, okay, I want Callie to be dealing with, issues related to family trauma? Was
Family
that
trauma.
early on?
I will say when I started writing, I knew if I write about my past, it's gonna have family trauma, because it's just part of it. And I embrace it in that it makes me who I am and the strong person that I am. But as you were asking that question, a really unique idea just came to me in that I knew it was going to be about trauma because it just has to be if it's my past. But what happened to me that was really cool, I was writing, Stacy, is to write. I write a lot in first person in Clovis. It's mostly first person, but then there's a few different voices of the other characters. But in first person, as a child, I have to write from the viewpoint of Callie as a child, and then as a teenager, and then as a 20-year-old and a 30-year-old. And what I was in doing so, Stacy, just in the exercise of writing the book, I had to see my mom and see my dad as I would as a child. You see, and that helped me a lot because I hope in those chapters it comes across that I'm a bit righteous and I'm a know-it-all because I'm, 10 and think I've got it figured out, right? And we all felt that way. You look at your parents, you're like, how are y'all out of money? Why can't y'all figure this out? Like, this can't be hard. You're just so judgmental. And we all were. We just were. And I hope you feel, that the trauma, you witness it as a child and you see it in a certain light. And that's usually not accurate to me. When I grow up and I look back on it, people had different motives. They were doing things for reasons I couldn't see as a child. So to me, as I age, Callie in the book, my viewpoint starts to shift. So the trauma changes, and so I think that was a really cool exercise for me to deal with my trauma by viewing it from a child to now where I see it as a 40-year-old woman. It's totally different.
Right, right,
Completely different.
right. In writing about the parts of the book, the things that happened to Kelly that were true or that strike very close to home, I'm curious how it was as an exercise. Like you mentioned, it helped you sort of deal with it or look at it differently. Was it cathartic? Were there times when you thought this is such a bad idea?
Oh,
Like I really
I
should not be putting this on the page, or I just don't want to deal with it. It's so hard to write this and get through it.
No, I actually think it was therapy, Stacey. It
Mm,
was 100% therapy. My only concern with being like putting it on the page was other family members. Like I needed to go talk to my dad and other characters and be like, "Hey, I'm putting truth out here. This is truth, And my dad and I are very close, and he was like, "If you're telling the truth, there's nothing I can say about that, babes. That's the truth." So he had no problem with it, which was great. So my worry was that being, the other people, but being vulnerable for me what really helped, and again, I'm saying that as I write, to do perspectives from either my perspective as a kid or an adult or whatever, I also got to write from other people's perspectives, like my mom and my dad and my brother. And that was wildly healing and eye-opening because you really have to step outside of your shoes and you've got to try to get in somebody else's brain. And I started to see the scenes of my childhood totally differently from the viewpoint of my brother, or my dad.
mm.
That was so helpful. That was really helpful for me. And I assume in therapy sessions, they kind of do that, try to get people to step in other people's shoes. That was amazing for me. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Mm. And so now that you have a better understanding, let's
Mhm.
say, of your parents and your brother and maybe the reasons they did what they did or said what they said or
Right.
whatever, do you find yourself extending them a bit more grace or more sympathy? Or are there times when you're like, and yet still you did whatever you did?
Great way to put it. Like, really? I even put it in black and white. You're still doing it. No, I would say there's far more grace. And I actually, before I started writing this book, I was very much had grown older and come to a lot of the realizations in the book. It wasn't during the writing that those things happened. But before that, I connected with my brother in the book, I'm not too revealing a lot. There's a rift, in our relationship, but then it comes back together. And that was very true in real form in my real life. And that my brother and I are really close now. Oh my gosh. He he wants me to stop writing about him in my books. He's like, please, can I not be the main character anymore? So he and I are very close. My dad and I are very close. And unfortunately, my mom passed as I was writing this book. So I didn't get
Mm.
to say some of the things to her I would have liked to, but I did get to write them in the book. And that was really cool. So I got to right some wrongs there. That
Right,
was a neat,
right.
neat experience.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And your family, the other people represented in the book,
Yep.
generally happy with your portrayal of them, or have any of them been like, really, that's what you thought? Or uh,
Great question. So it's funny, I'll be honest, Stacey, a lot of them have not been able to get through it. They read so slow and they joke that I'm writing books faster than they can read them, which is kind of true. I'm like, come on, I need feedback. And they're still on chapter one. A lot of my very close family members really struggle to read it quickly at all because it takes them right back to those moments, those very intense big moments. So my closest family members are still like back in chapters 10 and 12 and they barely pick it up. It has to be a certain moment when they've got a glass of wine and they've got their head in the right place. So I kind of feel bad, like I'm putting a lot on them. But the feedback that I've got was just they said it cracked their chest wide open. Like they
uh,
just couldn't believe how many emotions and tears came out, which was really cool for me. That I
yeah,
can't believe I made people cry. And strangers, like my family, I kind of get it. They know these characters, but
right,
strangers,
right,
like that was really mind-blowing for me. That's
right.
a sincere emotion,
Yeah.
that
Have
I created somehow as an author. So that's really meaningful.
yeah. Have you gotten feedback or comments, people saying, I get this person, or I understand where the characters were coming from, or how
Mhm.
funny that's similar to something I've experienced or knew or whatever. I
Yeah,
mean, have
very
you?
much so.
Yeah.
Without revealing, one of the main characters struggles with something huge in his life that's torturous and hard to get through, and he mucks through it and he kind of makes a mess of things while he's trying to figure that out. And I've had a lot of friends with people with that same situation, and they get a lot of judgment for the mess they made when they were trying to figure out what was the right path, what was right for them. And it's kind of what you said. You're going to make a mess when you're not sure about your identity or what's the right choice or who are the right people for you. It's going to look really messy while you're trying to figure it out. And I was trying to negate the judgment for that. Maybe people don't have it all figured out. Maybe let's step back if their life looks a certain way and not judge them so harshly. So I did get a lot of people, and I'm kind of skirting around that to not reveal, but a lot of people connected with that character who was going through the very difficult things and saying people in their lives, when they went through that, got a lot of judgment for how their life looked during that phase. And so I hoped to, get ahead of that a little bit.
Right, right. You weave some humor into the book.
Mhm.
Like you write about it being dark humor because I mean we're talking about really dark, serious, heavy topics. In writing the story, in weaving in sort of humor and hope, did those things sort of just bubble up as a way for you as a writer to deal with them, or were they more conscious? Like, I'm going to put these things into the story. I'm going to weave it in because then it'll be helpful to the reader. I'm curious how they appeared for you in the book.
For me, I will say I knew it had to be funny. It's way too dark. And I'm the kind of person that deals with darkness with humor, like a lot of people do. I think that's very, very common. And in my family, the minute you can make a joke about something, we're all like, oh, thank goodness. It's a little bit behind us, like you can laugh about it. And then serious things, people get hurt or, injuries and we can make fun of it. It's like, okay, whew, takes the sting away. So I knew from the beginning. It had to have humor. And now, how much is the hard part? But what I love about humor, Stacey, it's actually one of my favorite ways to approach a dark message, or let's say a sensitive message, like something that's political or race wise, or poor or rich, sensitive topics that it's gonna be divisive. If you approach a topic like that with humor, what I find is people, they laugh at something that's the way they really feel, and they laugh at it and their walls come down and they're like, oh my gosh, that's my real position on that, because obviously I chuckled. And now it just takes barriers down. For me, humor does that. So then you can talk about truth. So yes, humor was intended from the beginning. I hope it was the right amount. Not too much, not too little, but that's my job, to land perfectly in that runway. So
Yeah. Well, you've written some other books, and as you mentioned, or as we mentioned at the very beginning, this was the first work of literary fiction. So I'm curious about the pivot.
yeah.
And you mentioned wanting to challenge yourself. So that was, one of the main reasons why you did this. But I'm curious, again, one, why the pivot? Why now? Why now do it? And how easy or difficult that was compared to what you had been doing.
Sure. Oh, great. You got gold stars for the questions, Stacey.
Thank
These
you.
are amazing. Yeah. I'm like, wow, these are awesome. You got me thinking about things I've never thought about before. It's a brief history to kind of explain the pivot was the sailing books started from my blog, which was Have When We'll Travel, which is very fun. It's self-deprecating. It's meant to be tongue-in-cheek, lighthearted travel blog, right? And so I've cobbled together those articles to make my sailing books. So they have the same tone. They're nonfiction, but they're very tongue in cheek. And so that's very fun to write, very easy, but it's light. I'm not challenging myself. I'm just kind of chatting with friends. I'm not sitting here thinking about my words and being particular about it. And so I knew I wanted at some point to challenge myself as a writer. And the timing of this is actually, so we've been sailing for a while. My partner and I, Philip, for about 10 years plus on our boat. And we decided just last year to sell her. We're going to sell the sailboat, probably get a different boat later on, but we're doing international travel. Like with the sailboat, it's hard to park her and go do international trips. So we were excited about that. And so it's definitely more of a land-based chapter. You know what I mean? So I'm not cleaning the boat as much. I'm not sailing as much. It gives me a lot more time at a keyboard to write. So that was a good timing of it. But I started writing her on the boat. I wrote all of Clovis on the boat. Me and my laptop in the cabin. So
Wow.
I knew I wanted to do this even when we were sailing. It's just this time period gave me the time to market it and do all these things.
Yeah. Well, in writing it on the sailboat, the I'm curious the juxtaposition between being on a
Yeah.
sailboat and people consider that like a bit more of a carefree sort of environment, and yet dealing with something while you're writing, working it through it in your head, something heavy and dark and traumatic. So, was it helpful to be doing that in that environment, or was it more
Yeah.
distracting than
Wow,
helpful?
I love talking to you. This is so interesting because I'll tell you, a lot of cruising is not happy and light and easy. Oh my gosh, it is a lot of it is scary and terrifying and uncomfortable. And you are just like, get me out of the storm, get me off of this boat. I mean, you feel that way a lot. Trust me. You can ask any woman out there. She'd be like, oh, there were moments. I was going to sell that boat myself. Didn't care who walked down the dock, first sale sign. I mean, there's times like that. So it's kind of cool that you said that. So often writing the book was a checkout from the very uncomfortable, stressful moment of the boat. But then other times the boating is so fun. It's a full spectrum of experience from every emotion in between. So when the boat's really fun, we're like in the Bahamas, we're on anchor, the weather's beautiful. Yeah, I don't want to open my laptop and write about family trauma. No, we're putting that away. I'm gonna go get a Goombay smash. Excuse me. So it was nice. I like it as a wonderful challenge that I can open up and push myself and create something amazing. I love being a writer because I can travel and work. And so I liked having it. At times it was the dark side, at times it was the light side. It's just always with me, writing, no matter what it is. So it
Yeah,
was easy to do on the boat for me.
yeah. Were you always a writer as a young person? Were you writing? Was this and were you the kind of kid who wanted to be a writer, or was that something that you thought of later in life?
No, I have some really cute little funny stories. The answer is I knew from day one. Like I
Mm,
have been writing forever and ever. I'll tell you just a couple. So one is I need to go find this today because I'm putting it on my author socials. I wrote these little Sweet Valley High like newsletter things when I was in like fourth grade. Like just for me. Like it's for nobody else. I'm just showing my mom at home, poor thing. She's like, yeah, it's great. Put it on the fridge. So I wrote those. I'm gonna go find one of those because they're hilarious. And then I just put up on my author Facebook or whatever that Jan Brett is a children's author and illustrator. Have you ever heard that name?
mm. No.
Okay, so she's pretty famous. She's done a lot of really cool stuff and won a lot of awards. And I was a huge fan of hers when I was like
Mm.
11. And I wrote her a letter, Stacy, like, "Hi, I'm Annie, and I wrote this little story. I wish I'd kept the story. Sent her a story with an illustration. I want to be a writer." 1993, she wrote me back and told me to keep at it. I loved your story, things like that. So this
Aw.
has been from the get-go for me. Long, long time coming.
So where do you go next? Do you have a work in progress? Is there a plan? Do you have a list of things you want to write about? Is it just the biggest, brightest, shiniest idea that you work on next? Where do you go from here?
Oh, I have too many. They're like fireworks in my brain.
Mm.
Like all this, I have to like shut them down. I'm like, I'm trying to brush my teeth and I'm drooling. Please stop. I've got to get through my morning. Okay. They're always there. So, the sequel to Clovis is just about done. I've written her, and
Uh,
her name is Austin. So that's the next chapter of that sort of segment, and it picks up right where Clovis left off. So all the kind of same characters and things. I've never written a sequel, so that was a really cool new experience for me to have like what I called like inside jokes, with my readers, or they call them Easter eggs. I guess I'm learning in the industry. But you have all this history back here that I can like tap on and play with, and I don't have to go there. I can just like reference it. And that's been really fun. I've enjoyed that. Now, I don't know if, I need to make sure the book can stand on its own. It can't just be a, prop up against Clovis. So that's been another new challenge. That's a
mm.
really cool new challenge. So I've worked on that, and I do think I'm going to write a trilogy in this series. I'm just too excited, and I've got too many fireworks going off. So that's coming. I could start a whole nother trilogy. My brain is so on fire with this right now, which is very cool. It's just a
Yeah.
chapter in my life that this fit, and it was the right thing to do.
Yeah. What about other goals? I mean, down the line, are there other genres you want to tackle? Are there other kinds of writing that you want to do? Or are you happy to just keep in the literary fiction lane?
No way. I drive all over the lanes. I'm doing donuts out there, but no, I'm so excited. I've written a play before a while back, several years back. Never mentioned that on a podcast before. So any playwright agents out there, Annie Dike author, write me. But I want to write a screenplay. I would love to write a screenplay. That is huge for me. I'm hoping to get my stuff like on Netflix or on Hulu or whatever. We're trying right now to pitch to literary agents. They're all saying no. So if y'all are listening, say yes. But we're trying. We're just trying to. I'd love to be on the screen with the books that I've written, novels, but I would love to write a screenplay. I'd love to do more plays. Plays are really fun to write. They are so dialogue rich. They're just
Mm-hmm.
people on a stage, and what a challenge that is. Make that a whole story where people feel emotions and cry and laugh. Two people on a stage. That's
Right.
cool. So I'm challenged. I love it. I want to do all of it. Maybe
Good.
not poetry. I'm not good at poetry. That one's
No.
not up there for me.
Well, you never know.
Maybe down the way. Yeah, I
Yeah.
might hit a peak at some point, get enlightened.
Well, so if people want to learn more about you and Clovis and look for new releases and things that you have going on, where's the best place to go to find you and that information?
So the best place for everything, which is kind of nice for me, it's my website. And so it's anniedikeauthor.com. It's very simple, just anniedikeauthor.com. And there, all my books, my newsletter, you can sign up for all of my author socials, my YouTube, my Instagram, everything's there. So that's the perfect hub.
Good, good. And any place in particular people can go to buy the books if they want to purchase a copy of Clovis.
Right there on the website. You can buy all the books there. Either you can buy the ebook right on the website, which is great for me. I get the most royalties that way. Click on the ebook and or the Audible, click right through to Amazon, or the paperback, just click right through there. So it's all on the website.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Annie, I want to thank you very much for joining me today on the podcast. I want to wish you luck with Clovis and the sequel. We'll look forward to that when it's ready. So congratulations on everything you've accomplished so far, and best of luck with the rest of your writing journey.
Thank you, Stacy. It was my honor.
The Bookshop at the End of the Internet is a podcast dedicated to helping book lovers discover new authors. Like any good bookshop, this podcast features a wide variety of books by the equally varied and interesting authors who felt compelled to write them. This podcast gives you a chance to meet these wonderful writers and discover your next must-read book. Listen to the authors describe their books and tell you their stories in their own words. My interviews feature books from all genres and authors from all walks of life, including those who are indie published as well as those published by small presses and large publishing houses. Looking for unique, not so easy to find books for yourself, a friend, or a book club? Tune into this podcast and find your newest favorite author or maybe a soon-to-be bestseller. This podcast, like all the best bookshops, is filled with all kinds of books and all kinds of authors. Tune in, browse around, find a new author, and discover a new favorite book. You never know what treasures you might find in the Bookshop at the End of the Internet.